Hello, my name is Mark Lynch, and I'm the Senior Program Manager at the National Credit Union Foundation. This is a tutorial orientation to help you prepare for your upcoming role as a life simulation volunteer. First of all, thank you for volunteering to be an integral part of our upcoming life simulation. You will have received an email telling you where and when the simulation will be held and what your role will be. In this tutorial, we will help you understand how a life simulation works and how you will go about playing your role during the simulation. A life simulation is an exercise designed to help credit union professionals and others in your community walk in the steps of households who are living month to month on low incomes. The simulation, which is not a game, will help participants understand what many of their members are facing each day. We as credit union professionals oftentimes do not understand the decisions our members make that impair their opportunity to obtain affordable credit and can cost them vast amounts of money. The life simulation will help participants understand that the decisions our members make are often the best options they have at that given moment. The simulation will help participants understand the stress that living in a low-wage household causes and the lasting personal, emotional, and financial toll it takes on our members. The life simulation is a 4-hour program which includes the volunteer orientation and the life simulation itself. You should plan to arrive 75 minutes before the live simulation is due to commence so that you can participate in the volunteer orientation. When the simulation commences, it then takes about 10 minutes for the participants to pick up their new identities and find their household unit. The group orientation takes around 30 minutes and the actual life simulation takes around 70 minutes. Immediately the simulation concludes, there is a debriefing which runs for around 40 minutes. It then takes about 15 minutes to pack up. When you arrive at the venue, the facilitator will check your name off and confirm your assignment. The facilitator will then send you to your assigned business station table where you will review the materials that are contained in the folder. You are one of several volunteers that will be working on this life simulation. These are the roles that volunteers will be undertaking. Bank manager. The bank manager is a busy person with several tasks to complete each day. The bank will cash checks, accept loan payments, accept and reject loan applications, accept savings deposits and withdrawals, and collect past due loans. Manager of the payday lending and check cashing store. The manager of the local payday lending and check cashing institution also cashes checks, offers payday and title loans, collects loan payments, and sells car transportation passes. The full-time employer. The full-time employer is trying hard to keep his business open. He needs a committed staff who complete their tasks on time. The employer hires and fires employees, distributes paychecks, reviews work assignments to evaluate employee performance, and completes the day-to-day operations of running a business. Utility company employee. The employee of the utility company is responsible for ensuring everyone in the community pays for their gas, water, garbage, and electric services each month. If they do not pay, shut-off notices are issued. If customers want to reconnect their services, the employee will charge a reconnection fee. Police officer. The police officer is responsible for keeping the peace and upholding the law. The police officer will respond to street crime, crack down on illegal employment, maintain the jail, issue tickets and warrants, and act as truancy officer. City Hall Administrator. The administrator of City Hall collects rent payments, fine payments, assists homeless households, and evicts tenants who do not pay. School teacher. The school teacher tries to run a good classroom where education is appreciated. The teacher collects and assigns homework, issues school supply requests, helps students find work by issuing work permits, and helps students facing challenges at home. Supercentre clerk. The Supercentre store clerk sells groceries, clothing, and accepts cell phone payments. If households are not buying groceries, the clerk will issue health warning notices. Daycare centre and homeless shelter worker. The homeless shelter worker is responsible for running the daycare and the homeless shelter for people and households who have no other places to live. Social services receptionist. The social services receptionist keeps the appointment logs, accepts applications for benefits, and provides interview sheets for clients. The social services caseworker. The social service caseworker maintains an appointment list, performs client interviews, provides assistance in some cases and not in others. Pawn shop owner. The pawn shop owner buys and sells goods to make a profit and also sells guns. Part-time employer. The part-time employer hires and fires employees, distributes paychecks, reviews employee work output, and reviews time off requests. Hospital associate. The hospital associate provides care for patients who are ill, recovering from an accident, or faced with an emergency medical situation. The associate will also maintain payment records, collect payments, and issue prescriptions and health forms. Criminal. The criminal conducts illegal activities such as drug dealing, robbing households and individuals, and also running an illegal employment operation. Bus driver. The bus driver for the community transports people who rely on public transportation. The buses are old and periodically break down. Once all the volunteers have arrived and have had time to review the materials at their business station, the facilitator will gather the volunteers together for an orientation. The orientation will start with an overview of what the simulation aims to achieve. All of the volunteers will then be asked to introduce themselves and to give a brief description of their business station. The facilitator will help you recognize that your role is to make the simulation challenging. You should not provide answers to the participants. You should let them make their own way through the simulation. If you are in a role where you might give participants a receipt, you do not provide one unless they ask. Then later in the simulation, you should request payment from a few of them, not all, who have already paid, because that is what happens in real life. One of the most important aspects of the simulation is transportation. Some families own a vehicle, while others will need to rely on public transportation. Vehicle transportation passes can be purchased for $5 each at the local payday lending store, and each time a person or family visits a business, the first thing you must do is collect a transportation pass from them. They only need one pass for each trip, regardless of how many family members are in the car. They are not able to provide transportation to any other individuals, and other families are not allowed to borrow a car. It is important that you examine their identity cards and car key to determine who should be in the family vehicle. If they do not have their key, they must not be served. For those households who do not have a vehicle, they must rely on the bus to get from one location to another. Taking public transportation is less expensive and only costs $1 for each time an individual needs to ride the bus. However, they are only able to purchase one bus pass at a time, except to go to work. In this case, they are able to purchase a maximum of 5 work transportation passes at a time if they are a full-time employee, and 3 work transportation passes at a time if they are a part-time employee. And these passes are only accepted at the full-time and part-time employer. If they arrive at the full or part-time employer for work without the number of bus passes needed to work the entire week, that is, 5 passes for full-time or 3 for part-time, then they will be sent home from work or fired. A public transportation pass must be purchased for each person who travels, including children, and must be presented immediately at each location they visit. The only time a transportation pass is not required is to ask the facilitator a question or to ride the school bus. The facilitator will then let you know that during the orientation of the participants, he or she will go to each resource table for introductions. You will introduce your character and tell the participants what your role in the simulation will be. This information is contained in the folder on your table. You should describe your role only and not your assigned personality. If you are assigned the role of the criminal, you will not introduce yourself. You should try to play the role as realistically as possible. Think about what a person in your business role may think like, act like, or feel like. If you have any questions about the simulation or the role you have been assigned, this will be the best time to ask. Not all of the households are used in most simulations, so the facilitator will let you know before the simulation begins which households will be used. You should use a dry erase marker to mark the households which will be included in the exercise. After the orientation concludes, you will go back to your station to further review the materials. The facilitator will be on hand if you have any further questions. We want you to be comfortable with your role. When the facilitator concludes the orientation of participants, the simulation will begin. A simulation is divided into 4 15-minute weeks. The facilitator will blow a whistle to start and finish each week. When the 15 minutes is up for each week and the whistle blows, participants must immediately return to their households. You should not serve a participant after the whistle blows. If, during the simulation, you have a question or are not sure of something, you should ask the facilitator for assistance. After the whistle blows for the end of week 4, you should pack up all the material on your table and place it in the folder. The facilitator will ask participants to do the same with their material. Please work with the other volunteers to pick up all the packets from the business stations and households and return them to the storage container. The simulation can be a very emotional activity for many people. It is very important to allow the participants the chance to share those emotions. Doing so allows them to release some of the pressure they are feeling in a constructive way. The facilitator will ask 5 to 8 volunteers to move to one of the flip charts that have been strategically placed around the simulation site prior to the start of the program, and will then instruct the participants to move to a flip chart closest to them. The volunteer at each flip chart will then ask the participants to give 1 to 2 word explanations of how they are feeling. For example, are they feeling angry, frustrated, proud, etc.? This should take 5 to 7 minutes. The facilitator will then ask volunteers to bring the flip charts to the front of the space and place them where all of the participants can see them. There will then be a 5 to 7 minute discussion on the emotions expressed. The facilitator will then ask the household units to discuss amongst themselves what worked well for them and what they could have done better. When this discussion concludes, the facilitator will call on 3 to 5 volunteers to share their experience as service providers. If chosen, you should share your experiences as a business station volunteer. For example, you could talk about how you took advantage of customers, how you failed to give them receipts or proper change, etc. Participants will discuss what they have learned about their members, which will help their credit union do a better job of serving members in the future. Participants and volunteers will then be asked to share these ideas. When the discussion concludes, the facilitator will thank everyone for their participation and conclude the live simulation. If you need any information or assistance prior to the live simulation, or if you have any questions, you should contact your facilitator.